I'm just giggling because you said, Jesus, you're the bomb. And we're talking about peacemaking. Osheta, okay. So I just need to zoom back a bit and go,
Yeah.
I don't know who's listening right now. I don't know, we don't know their context. We don't know their life circumstance. I'm assuming because Tethered is all around grief and loss and faith and doubt. I'm assuming that there's people showing up that are tired from grief,
Yeah.
right? And I know you've had deep, difficult
Yeah.
days of grief as well. And I think talking about this peacekeeping as sort of this creative force for good is so inspiring. But when you are talking to someone who's already in pain, who's already struggling to do the soul work that needs to be done to get out of bed in the
Yeah.
morning, like, how do you move this conversation into a context that actually is hopeful and life-giving to that person who's really struggling? Or what would you say about, seeking shalom in that sort of a context?
Yeah. Well, so so I lost my mom a year and a half ago. It'll be 2 years this January. And for me, um, one of the things I was most grateful for was that I had built the scaffolding for a theology of peacemaking and
Mm-hmm.
shalom. And I say that because I had built rhythms and practices of connecting between me and God, being really comfortable and being self aware about my energy levels, my bandwidth, my emotions, being able to put words around that, because a huge part of my shalom seeking for my body was being okay with being a brown woman, like loving that I'm a black woman, loving that I'm outspoken, loving that I'm a J on the Myers-Briggs, appreciating that I'm a 2. And these are all practices of peacemaking, like knowing the person that God made you, and that and acknowledging that God didn't make a mistake in making you that way.
Yeah.
So having that self-awareness and knowing that God is a good God who is grieving alongside me, who wants to walk alongside, who wants to nurture me and care for me, um, as a mother to a child, that space was really holy for me and super important. And it also gave me the courage I needed to ask for others and say, to to kind of be the peacemakers for me in my life. Like, I have these things going on, and I can't figure it out. There's literally like 3 days, one, like a couple of months after I came back from my mom's memorial, where I was like, I like don't know. I can't cook. Like, I can't, I don't want to eat out. I need like a good meal. And people brought a meal, and there was like somebody who, like, she saw me at work and she was like, "You just look like you need a hug." And she's like, she was an older woman, and she hugged me, and I just burst into tears, and I realized, like, oh, I need like a mother hug. And so I asked her, like, I was just vulnerable enough, and I said, like, hey, like, whenever you see me, like, can you hug me? Because like I really miss my mom, and like when you hug me, like I feel like God is hugging me, like my mom is like with me, like. And I think because
Mm.
I had done the work of like really seeking shalom between me and God, and trusting God and listening to the Spirit, and then seeking shalom in myself and being like, what do I need? I was able to attend to my needs in such a way during that season that I really felt like I was appropriately moving through my grief, um, to where I got to a place where, like, now I miss my mom, but it's not keeping me from getting up in the morning. It's not keeping me from living into my calling. And I actually know, like, my mom's like proud of me. Like, I know that I'm doing good work, and I'm not dishonoring her. And so I think that one of the things I say in my book is, I am not firing in all 4 of these directions all the time. There are seasons, like right after George Floyd was murdered, there were seasons here in my city that I was doing that systemic like work, where I was like, my husband and I were like speaking truth to power and leading our church and caring for our community and holding space for them. Like, we were doing that work, and trying to like still listen to God, but like I wasn't like super duper attentive to my body all the time because I was exhausted all that time. And then I had to like pull back and be like, okay, so now is the season for like caring for my body and paying attention to God because now I have to write my book. And so like I think that's another thing I would say is that um we are peacemaking. If we choose to do the work of peacemaking, we are doing this work for the rest of our lives. And so we pace ourselves and we pay attention to what is the brokenness that's being presented to us in this moment, and we seek peace there. And sometimes that is really like internal brokenness that you have to go to therapy, you have to go to your spiritual director, you have to go to your pastor, you have to spend some time with the Lord, you have to say no to some things so that you can get whole within yourself. And
Mhm.
grief, when grief is enacted upon us, when we have deep loss, I think it's wholly appropriate that we've been brokenhearted. And so seeking wholeness in that situation is that self-care and that attentive care. And then letting other people in your life know, like, this is a season where I'm really trying to work through this. And I really am, I'm inviting you to care for me, to pay attention, to check on me.
Mhm.
So yeah. And I think
Yeah.
and doing that, we're teaching others how to be peacemakers too. Like we're inviting them in because maybe you are the brokenness that God is showing them that they get to be a part of bringing wholeness. And it's teaching them that like when they have their moments, like they can like pull back and say, I really need to do some peacemaking work in here. Can you guys all kind of come around me and protect me and care for me too? So
Yeah. That actually reminds me of it reminds me of a little story when my oldest was probably about 3 years old or three and a half. And so my husband and I have experienced recurrent miscarriages, but we hadn't at that point. And we had just had our first miscarriage. And, it really flattened me. And
mhm.
we shared our grief with our kids because, this is real life and we want them included in all of our lives. So we weren't sheltering them from it. Um, and they had a little bit of understanding of what was going on, particularly our 3-year-old. Our one and a half year old didn't so much, but the 3-year-old did. And there was a moment where one day, I was just sitting on the couch and I was a little bit teary. I don't think I was crying much, but I was just a little bit
Mhm.
teary, maybe glossy eyed. And he came over to me and he said, hey, mama, are you sad today? And I said, yeah, I am sad today. And he goes, are you sad? This is Levi. Levi says, are you sad that the baby didn't come home? And I said, yeah, that's exactly why I'm sad. And he goes, I'm sad too. And then he crawled up in my lap and he just gave me a hug and he just sat
Mhm.
there. And it was such a beautiful moment because I felt like God was showing me that this wasn't just about shared pain, but this was actually about dignifying my little 3-year-old to the point where I would let him minister to me.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when you open yourself up to be vulnerable with others, it actually dignifies them and says, I will trust you to minister to me or to serve me.
Yeah.
Not serve me as in a master serving, but serve as in a Jesus way. And
Right. Like a washing the feet of the
yeah.
disciples kind of service. And what I love about that story is that you gave a very clear picture of the kind of person that we can trust with our pain, like somebody
Mhm.
who is willing to share that and who sees that. Because I think one of the things that in my past, with my mom, not so much, but in my past, I went through things and I would share my pain with someone, thinking that they could hold it, thinking that I was inviting them in,
Mhm.
and I was like dignifying them, and actually they weren't able to deal with it.
Mhm.
And that broke my heart even more. That was like compounded pain on top of
Yeah.
the initial pain.
Yeah.
And so what I love in your story is that your son was like, yeah, like he saw your sadness because he was experiencing sadness. Like he had that empathy. And then he was able to say, like, yeah, I'm going to sit in sadness with you, whether like in different degrees, obviously, like you're an adult, he's a child, but I'm going to be able to sit in that sadness with you. And that's one of the when I wrote my book, I came up with like 12 kind of manifesto points for shalom seeking. And one of those is that we will show up, say something, and be still. And it's just this idea
Yeah.
that our presence is important. Saying something compassionate, empathetic, and honoring of each other's pain is important. And then just being still, like
Mhm.
just allowing the Holy Spirit to like allow you to suffer and grieve together. I think that's super important. And going back to our conversation around race, when somebody like particularly when a white person asks me like, what do I do next? I'm like, one of the best things you can do is just learn right now, like make space to be uncomfortable, make space to grieve,
Mhm.
because whether or not there's a new hashtag, your brown and black brothers and sisters are suffering to some degree. And if you reveal yourself to be somebody that's like, I see your pain, I see your struggle, and I'm going to sit in that with you, like that is a massive act of peacemaking that terrifies the enemy to his core, because it is us, like, embodying that sacrificial love of Jesus, that from the cross, that completely overcame sin and
Mhm.
death. So
Yeah. Yeah. For you,